Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Luigi's Mansion. In the last week we continued our way through Area 2 and now we're approaching the end of it here in the Boneyard. First thing you want to do here is actually use the water element we just gained on the seed right there because it's going to come important later on. What's written on that sign? Here lies Mr. Bones. Quiet. And over here we got a dog. Dog sounds. This is our next portrait ghost already. This surprisingly adorable little ghost bulldog would be Spooky the Hungry Guard Dog. This creepy canine will stick its chops into any seemingly edible thing in sight. Spooky doesn't have much for attacks. You get too near him, he barks and then charges at you. We want to just bait out his attacks for a little bit until something else occurs that reading that sign gives you a really good hint about, honestly.
For the love of God, make the yappy dog be quiet.
We got our first bone ghost here. They work sort of like certain bone enemies in Mega Man, actually. They move around and throw a bone at you. But, because it's a bone, when we vacuum up this specific ghost, a ghost bone is left behind. And that'll distract Spooky, leaving him open to be vacuumed. This is a pretty open, square area, so unless you just get dragged in various directions very quickly, it's honestly very easy to get this boss in one go. But that's only if you're actively going for high ranks, of course. And doing that makes the lights turn on in here and we can move on. But move on to where, you might ask? Well, the doghouse is sparkling over there, so I think the first thing we should do is investigate that with the Game Boy Horror. Doing so, like with the mouse hole we did one before we fought Shivers, brings us over here to the graveyard in the back of the mansion. Notably, what we want to do here is actually go towards the very obviously signposted ominous grave in the distance, but doing so is going to make 3 more skeleton ghosts shows up. But since I don't grab it now and I grab it later, I should note there is a gemstone in here you can grab, I believe, by investigating the drainage pipe on the very bottom right of this room. Might as well do that now while you're here, because I think it's the only real money you can get in this room. I don't think if you come back here later, otherwise, I don't think anything else has money off the top of my head. Most of the graves just spawn out of ghosts or hearts, I think, but I might just be wrong about that straight up. I played this game a lot, but because of the random nature of some of the money in this game, there's probably some things that have just never dropped it out of pure coincidence, honestly. Now, this game is very obviously meant for younger audiences to begin with, of course. But if there's something that always kind of sticks with me is that there's like 3 distinct sections that when I was a kid actively scared me and put a lot of dread in me. This room, for some reason, was one of them, if only because I think I was just kind of scared of graveyards to begin with because of some zombie movies I saw clips of when I was very little. So approaching one in a game like this just weirdly scared me. Nowadays, though, it's nothing. Time for probably my favorite boss fight in the game. This is Bogmire. Bogmire himself is made up of 2 distinct entities, the Shadow and the main ghost. You can only do damage to Bogmire by vacuuming up the small or large Bogmire shadows that spawn in and releasing them right in front of the boss fight into him to stun him. I don't think the smaller large Shadow Bogmires actually have a functional difference outside of just potentially the damage they do to you, but you do want to clear as many of the shadows as you can, if only because having a lot of them hounding you as you're either going over to the main Bogmire to stun him or while you're actively damaging him just gives you a lot of opportunities to take damage and lower your rank or make the boss fight go on longer than it needs to. You're never too far away from where the main Bogmire spawns in at some point, but if you're ever trying to find him, the occasional lightning and thunder strike will actually inform you where he is because he casts an actual shadow. But then there's times where he just appears like that. Not a very hard boss, but I've always found this one pretty fun. Out of the main bosses in the game, like I said, it is probably my favorite just because I think it has a good concept while not feeling drawn out is the word I'm going to use, but I feel like there's a better term for it. As the next couple of major boss fights, I think very much lean into being too long or annoying in some form or another. Albeit one of those is mostly only in the American release, for reasons I'll get into when we reach it. Area 2 is done. And there's our club key, so now we can access new areas of the mansion we haven't been to before. Hello again, Egad.
Luigi, can you hear me? Good to see you're still okay. I lost your signal when that lightning struck. That was some battle you had there. Why don't you come on back to the lab? What? You think the lightning damaged the Poltergeist 3000? Don't worry about it. Even if that lightning had cooked your goose, your Poltergeist 3000 wouldn't have even had a scratch.
Comforting.
Good job, Luigi. You made it back in one piece. Looks like you got a vacuum full of ghosts there. What do you say we put them through the old ghost portrificationizer?
So it's time for our end of Area 2 totals, and unlike Area 1, what your totals end up being here can drastically change, as not only are there optional rooms you can visit, like the hidden room and all that, but the fact we actually had some optional bosses in this chapter means that if you just go for the bare minimum, you're probably going to have not only a shorter portrait sequence, but also just a lower total score at this point. There is honestly some fun to be had in just trying to get through this game as fast as possible, speedrunning it and all that, albeit it's not the preferred game I'd like to do that kind of stuff with. But it's still fun to do. In that regard, Luigi's Mansion 2 and 3, while they have their optional things, they have less optional things than Luigi's Mansion 1 does in that definition. Most of their optional stuff is collectibles you can find along the way versus actual, optional bosses and rooms. But I'll cover that more in detail whenever I get to LM2 onwards.
Well, we managed to turn those ghosts back into paintings. Thanks for your help, Luigi.
I think in terms of the totals when it comes to getting endgame ranks, you do really accelerate up through the ranks as you get further in the game because there's just that much more money you can find from more optional bosses or especially getting a couple specific pickups. Like, I think the bottom rank in this game is an H rank, and it'll showcase the reward for each rank when we get to the ending credits. Meanwhile, I think at this point I have enough for just about an F rank, and the top is an A rank, unless you're playing, I think, the 3DS release where they added a rank above that. It does accelerate once you get those last couple things, but even then as you get more and more gemstones or silver diamonds, it just balloons and balloons. Before we make our way into the mansion for the third time, though, like with the Area 1 stuff, we're once again going to head into the gallery to take a look at the other ghosts' portraits on top of the one we earned up close and personal. I think you get the biographies that I've been reading for the boss ghosts, by the way, by investigating these with your Game Boy Horror. One thing I don't like about the gallery, though, is how the boss ghosts are laid out in it. It's not in any numerical or completion order. It doesn't make any sense. The only one that makes sense is the empty portrait that's in the door in the distance in either of these two hallways, because that's where the final boss's portrait's gonna go. With that said, once we're done here, we're going to be heading back to the mansion, of course, and we're honestly coming up on what's probably my favorite chunk of the game on the whole. I really like Area 3, barring its end-of-area boss fight, its Chauncey or its Bogmire. I'll get into the exact reasons of that as we go, though. I did get stuck on this section a lot as a kid, though, but it was always for, like, a very silly reason, in retrospect. Which, honestly, a lot of the times I got stuck in games as a kid was usually a silly reason, ultimately. Let's go and then get on out back to the mansion. It would have been kind of neat if they actually made Luigi get, I'm not going to say a little braver as he walked up to the mansion the further into the game you got, but at least maybe more confident considering he's getting a little more used to it, even if he is still afraid of everything that's going to happen. So now that we're in the Area 3 section of the plot, our first action is to head back to the end of the Area 2 section. You might remember that plant we watered at the very start of the video. We want to go back and water that again, because now that some time has passed since then, it's grown a little bit more, and we can water it again to accelerate its growth a little further. We want to do this not only at the end of Area 2 and here at the start of Area 3, but we want to come back to it at some point near the start of Area 4 for a very big reward. With that said, we're going to keep that out of our heads for now because we've done all we can there for now. Now, I never directed attention to it, but we have seen the door we can use the key we got from Bogmire in the LP already, but if you even look at your map, there's not many options for doors you can unlock at this point left in Area 2. There's the one to our right, which is locked from the other side, and then there's the door with thorns and pulsating energy that we need to use the club key at over here at the very northwestern corner. Also, it's a minor thing they did, but I actually really like the choice to not have music play when you're in an area you've actively cleared and is safe like this hallway. Because while it makes it feel safe, it also makes it still feel, like, ominous, considering the whole, you know, Haunted Mansion aesthetic. Having music only play in the actively haunted sections gives it a little more energy in a way that I really appreciate. Welcome to the start of Area 3. We're starting off in the backyard. Wait, no, it's courtyard, isn't it? Yeah, courtyard. Now, I could have actually come over here to get water as well in case I wanted to, because we can also water the plants around here. With that said, it's just more convenient to go over to the plant in the boneyard first, just for the sake of it. And this is a room I didn't know you could actually light up for several years. Because I just figured this is one of those, okay, it's outside, it's dark, of course. But there are hidden ghosts in here that come out of the trees. The guys that jump down and go, oogaloo, 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 those guys. Those enemies are interesting in that they almost always have 0 HP. They're just there to be an annoyance. With that said, if you catch, I think, all 3 of them that are in the trees, this room does light up. And you don't need to do that, but you might as well for the money, effectively. Make sure you check that birdhouse, though, for Mario's letter. I wonder what it says. We'll find out eventually, because this is the chapter where we actually need to do things with those items. What's really weird about this game for me, and this is mostly, I think, a personal thing, despite enemies like those guys having 0 health, I find them at times more annoying to deal with than the standard ghost setup, like the orange ghosts, the grabbing ghosts, and all that. If only because they come out at more inopportune and seemingly random feeling times compared to the other guys where they're constantly just trying to hound you. Lining up the lights in here gets us a chest, of course, but if we check over here, there's also this outhouse. With a toad in it. Ow. Oh, something terrible's happening. Not well. Oh, really? I guess we can go check that out. Might as well grab the chest while we're on the way back over here anyway. And thus clearing this room is effectively optional. You just need to actually find the key and get out of it, which doesn't require actual clearing the ghosts whatsoever. That said, I'm not sure if you don't clear the room, if you can actually use that toad to save. I don't think I've ever actually really saved at that specific toad. Also, fun thing, if you ever climb a ladder, you can just use the vacuum to completely ignore climbing it.
Get me out of here!
Well, we found Mario. As well as the next key. You need to come down here and actually see that cutscene and then capture that ghost to leave this room entirely. So we at least know he's here. And seemingly been trapped in a painting.
Oh, yeah.
Great. We'll get to him, I hope. And what's kind of interesting is, once we get to the next room, we're already faced with something completely optional. But first, how you doing, Toad? You saw him, didn't you? How could they do that to Mario? Well, and I saw him like that. I completely lost it and ran through the mansion looking for a hiding place. While I was running, though, I did happen to notice that Mario left some of his things lying around the place. A hat, glove, shoe, letter, and a star. I saw 5 items altogether. I'd go to collect them for you if I can remember where they were. Yeah, I probably should have picked some up. Leave it to me. Why, huh? Really? You'll find all of Mario's items for me. Yippee, skip Yahoo! Oh, thank you so much, Luigi. And thus we know there's 5 items. We've already found 2 of them from Mario, just gotta find the other 3. So in this first door in Area 3 proper is actually a completely optional portrait ghost to start. You only get money for capturing him, but we do want to do some other things in the room before we even investigate him. Namely, here in the rec room, there's not only a speedy spirit, but there's a key we can grab ahead of time. There's the speedy spirit. Come here. Grabbed a ruby, that one. That's pretty good. But next up, we want to go investigate the treadmill on the top left corner of the room, as It has a key you never actually need to finish the game, but makes getting through the mansion a hell of a lot smoother. Namely, you need to run on the treadmill, and it'll open the door on the northeastern side of Area 2. Again, you never actually need this, but to make getting through the mansion a lot easier, I would recommend it. But now let's talk about the portrait ghost in here. This is the room of Biff Atlas. This kind bodybuilder loves muscles and lilies. By lilies, they symbolize purity. And let's get a good idea of how we can take care of him by investigating his heart.
Look at this buffness. I'm huge. How'd you like me on punching bag weakling?
Well, he mentions punching bags, so let's use those against him. By knocking him with one, you do damage to him, sort of. You need to hit him with 3 separate punching bags to actually make him damageable properly. With that said, if you're too close to a punching bag when it's on the backswing, you will also take damage. If you're good about the timing, you can completely avoid him actually trying to attack you, but be careful all the same. And getting Biff Atlas down to get the big pearl, at least doing 90 HP in one shot, is probably one of the hardest boss ghosts to do it to in the game because of the punching bags and the weight in the middle of the room. This is one that I actually had to restart the recording for several times just to get that to go right. I dislike getting 90 damage on him in one go immensely. But again, if you're just trying to get through the game, it's never necessary, though the extra cash for a high ranking does feel pretty good by the end of the day. Another reason you're probably really going to want to get the key in this room, though, to get back to the main part of Area 2 faster rather than going through the courtyard again, actually comes down to the boo in this room, as very often they'll flee to the west, taking them into the conservatory where we took care of Melody. And that's happened to me more times than I'd like to admit, and having that key makes doing that trick again a little bit simpler, and only because it's just a straight shot at that point rather than having to curve around multiple times, potentially. Though I say that Area 3 is where boos fleeing to prior or later rooms becomes a real issue, as sometimes they can flee into rooms technically that are all the way in Area 4. And that's annoying. Also, worth noting, you can skip the scenes where Luigi opens the doors. I just don't for, I guess, completeness. Really, I probably could have, but, you know, well. Might as well while you're here, in case you need to. Grab some health if there's any nearby. And let's head upstairs to the rest of the second floor. We've been there as early as part 1, but the entire northeastern half of the second floor is inaccessible from the southwestern half. Although, if memory serves, early maps that I think I may have already brought up in the LP indicate you were originally supposed to be able to through 2 doors, one on the foyer, second floor east, and then one to the north of, I think, the room where we found our first Speedy Spirit. Alright, so this here is the tea room. There's a gold mouse in here that you can find right there beneath that chair, but there's also a secondary golden mouse in here that's one of the random spawns. And getting them to show up in this case is kind of annoying, but thankfully because we can access the second floor hallway near us, we're going to take care of that as soon as I get all the money here. This is also the first room in the game we've seen that has just kind of a very weird mechanic for the rest of the game. I think it's in total maybe in only 3 rooms. There's a plate on the floor over here that inverts gravity. You'll just fall up to the ceiling. And there's another one here on the ceiling that'll put you on top of the table on the left. It's neat. I don't really think it was needed, but it's neat. Honestly, there's probably some puzzles they could have done with it that'd be a little more interesting than what they actually use it for. But again, given how relatively early on the GameCube this was, they were probably more worried about getting the game done. So some ideas that aren't fully explored like that are honestly kind of understandable. And now I start farming out for the golden mouse that just spawns when we walk in. I do end up leaving and re-entering the room for about 2 or 3 minutes at this point. Going over to that hallway to the west is recommended just because I think going 2 rooms away makes it a little more likely. And it comes over from the west, and that is one of our last gold mice in the game, actually. I think there's only 1 left, technically 2, for this LP, because I forgot to get to the one underneath the chair that Mr. Lugs was sitting on back in the dining room earlier in the LP, but there's one opportunity I can get that again later on. So at this point, we just need to catch all the ghosts in here, and then the lights will turn on, and then we'll be able to progress onwards towards the rest of this hallway. While you're taking care of the grabbing ghosts, you might want to take a moment to just vacuum up any of the plates that are trying to attack you, but there's so few ghosts in here, it doesn't really become an issue, honestly. With that said, let's see what our reward in this particular room is. That's a different colored chest than we've seen, because within it lies our third and final element medal. Gee, I wonder what element this one could be. Alrighty, Gad, inform us.
Hey now, Luigi, what have you found there? Let me see it. It's an ice element medal. Now you can use the ice element. Ice elemental ghosts are found only in chilly places. You'll probably find them in refrigerators or cold areas like that. My research shows that they come out of hiding when you approach. Use the L button to expel ice element once you vacuum up one of those ghosts. If you press the L button all the way in, you can shoot out a frigid lump of ice. Yes, sirree, when water gets cold, it freezes, right? Ice can be very effective against water. You could use it on water ghosts, for example. Even a hot bath would get cold pretty quick if you iced it down. Yep, that's very convenient item you found there, Luigi.
Always found it a little weird that the three elements you can expel in the game are fire, water, and water, but very cold. But I guess thinking about it, what else could you theoretically do with expelling air out of a vacuum elementally? Like, okay, water, you may turn into a hose. Fire, turn into a flamethrower. Ice, you become air conditioner, effectively. Not much else I guess you could do with that, because lightning would be kind of weird, and what would you do with, like, an earth thing? It just wouldn't feel really weird. But for the limited stuff they got, it's fine. Ice is definitely the element we end up using the least, though, off the top of my head, albeit it is very important in two specific rooms we'll talk about later on. But with that and that boo fleeing to another room we can't get to yet, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 6 we're going full force into the main chunk of Area 3. See you guys then!